Peter Riera, 44, opened fire outside Harper's Pub in Port St. Lucie on November 4th after a discussion about chicken egg production escalated into what police are calling paranoid delusion. This is, believe it or bullshit. Riera, who introduced himself to the group as Farmer Pete, fired 4 shots from a .45 caliber Glock at 3 people he just met that evening, with 1 round passing within inches of Tyler McCargy's head. Nobody was injured. The farmer, who sells eggs at a local market, became convinced the trio was attempting to con him during what witnesses describe as a casual conversation about poultry. Police arrived to find Riera holding the loaded weapon after he called 911, claiming he'd been robbed and was being chased by 3 people. Master Sergeant Dominic Masidi told WPBF that all parties involved had been drinking. Riera now faces charges of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and discharging a firearm in public, held on $435,000 bond. 2 of the victims, Brandon Pace, 23, and Kayla Damiana, 26, were arrested for resisting officers at the scene. The 3rd victim, McCarg, later told TMZ the entire incident began because Farmer Pete was asking for advice on making extra money. Here's how this actually went down. According to TMZ, the evening started normally enough. McCargu and his friends were out celebrating a birthday when they met Riera at the pub. Farmer Pete apparently had a problem, specifically how to generate additional income to support his family. The group chatted with him throughout the night, and at some point the conversation turned to Riera's side business, raising chickens and selling their eggs at the farmer's market. McCarg, making what he describes as innocent conversation, asked about the egg-laying capacity of Riera's chickens. A reasonable question, the kind of small talk people make at bars every single night across America. For Riera, however, this inquiry triggered something. He became convinced, despite zero evidence, that these 3 strangers he just met were somehow trying to swindle him. Witness statements given to Port St. Lucie police describe Riera growing increasingly agitated, accusing the trio of planning to jump him. The paranoia escalated quickly. Around 2:48 a.m., as the pub was closing, things moved outside to the parking lot. That's when Farmer Pete pulled out a handgun. He brandished the weapon at the group, threatening to shoot them, then appeared to back down. The 3 started leaving, but Riera wasn't finished. He moved to another section of the parking lot and opened fire. 4 shots from a .45 caliber Glock. McCargu told reporters 1 bullet passed close enough to his head that he heard it. 1 victim ran into the roadway trying to escape. The other 2 hid. Multiple 911 calls came in, including one from Riera himself, who told dispatch he'd been robbed and was being pursued by 2 men and a woman. When officers arrived, they found the farmer still holding the loaded Glock. The 3 victims, Pace, his girlfriend Damiana, and McCarg, were detained at the scene. They explained they'd been talking with someone they knew only as Farmer Pete about chickens and egg production, when the discussion inexplicably went sideways. Police noted that everyone involved smelled of alcohol. Messity summed up the department's position succinctly.
Arming yourself with a handgun when you're under the influence is not a good idea.
For the record, depending on breed and conditions, the average hen lays roughly 5 to 7 eggs per week, or 250 to 300 annually. Not that it matters. What matters is that Farmer Pete is now looking at serious felony charges over a conversation about breakfast food, and 2 of his would-be victims managed to get themselves arrested for resisting the officers who responded to save them from gunfire. In related news tonight, authorities across the state continue documenting incidents that raise questions about judgment, alcohol, and decision-making. Our next story involves another case where multiple individuals had opportunities to reconsider their choices, and yet here we are with law enforcement once again filing reports that shouldn't exist. A Deerfield Beach man was charged with attempted murder this week after shooting his 19-year-old son in the hand during a dispute about music volume. Joseph Scott Higgins, 55, became enraged Sunday evening when his son began playing heavy metal music loud enough to drown out the noise from Higgins' girlfriend and her friends, who were also playing loud music in the house. According to the Broward Sheriff's Office, an extremely intoxicated Higgins threatened to shoot his son, retrieved a revolver from his bedroom, and fired as the teenager attempted to redirect the weapon. The bullet struck the son's left hand. Higgins then emptied the entire cylinder while his son was on the ground, continued pulling the trigger after the gun ran out of ammunition, and began pistol whipping the wounded teenager. The son responded by slashing his father's neck with a box cutter in what deputies classified as self-defense. Both men required hospitalization and surgery. Higgins' 2 other sons, ages 12 and 14, witnessed the entire incident. The shooting took place at the family's home in the 200 block of Northeast 8th Avenue. Higgins appeared in court Thursday after his release from Broward Health North and is being held without bond. Let's review the timeline. According to Local 10 News, the incident began like countless weekend nights across America. People drinking, music playing, volume creeping up as the evening progressed. Higgins' girlfriend had friends over. They were playing their music loud enough, apparently, that Higgins' 19-year-old son decided the appropriate response was to fire up some heavy metal to compete. Not headphones, not a polite conversation, just louder music to drown out the already loud music. Higgins, who deputies describe as extremely intoxicated, did not appreciate this solution. He started yelling at his son. The son, recognizing where this was heading, pleaded with him to calm down. Higgins did not calm down. He became progressively angrier, the kind of escalation where everyone in the house knows exactly what's about to happen, but somehow can't stop it. Then, Higgins delivered the line that should end every domestic dispute but never does. "I'm going to shoot you." He walked to his bedroom, came back with a revolver, pointed it at his teenage son. The son grabbed the barrel, trying to redirect the weapon away from his body. Higgins fired. The round struck his son's left hand. The teenager pushed his father to the ground. This is where any rational person would stop. Higgins was not rational. He continued firing from the ground. 1 shot, 2 shots, 3. He emptied the entire cylinder. Then, when the gun clicked empty, he kept pulling the trigger, the hammer falling on spent casings. Still not finished, Higgins began using the revolver as a club, pistol whipping his wounded son. At this point, the 19-year-old, bleeding from his hand and being beaten with a firearm, pulled out a box cutter he happened to be carrying and slashed his father across the neck. Deputies would later classify this as self-defense, which seems reasonable given the circumstances. The whole time, Higgins' 2 younger sons, 12 and 14 years old, were watching this unfold in their own home. The wounded teenager managed to get to a neighbor's house. The neighbor called 911. Both men were transported to Broward Health North. The arrest report notes that Higgins' ex-wife told investigators he has a history of domestic violence with her and once pointed a gun at her head during their marriage. Much of the arrest report was redacted, but what's visible paints a clear picture. A violent drunk with access to firearms, a house full of people drinking and playing competing music at high volume, and children forced to witness their father attempt to murder their brother over the fucking volume knob. Higgins remains in custody without bond. The son's current condition has not been released. Both stories tonight feature people who had multiple chances to de-escalate situations that never should have gotten violent in the first place. So here's the question for you. What's the stupidest thing you've ever seen someone refuse to back down from? When walking away was right fucking there as an option. Work arguments, family drama, bar disputes, doesn't matter. Real stories only. Drop them in the comments. That's Believe It or Bullshit. Hit that like and subscribe button because who knows what other insane shit I'll dig up next time.